Yeah, adds a bit of character.
Morning.
G'day, Gav. How you going?
Yeah, not too bad. Another interesting day on the markets.
Yeah, it's been a pretty big week. We've had a fair bit of upside, obviously a bit of a sell-off yesterday, but we ended up only just down for the day after being down about 50 or 60 at one stage. So some interesting moves.
Yeah, I mean, China doing some stuff with their housing loan requirements certainly gave iron ore a kick, and away went the miners.
Yeah, it was interesting watching trading yesterday. It looked to me late in the afternoon, Rio and BHP had been down most of the day. And then I think around about 2 o'clock market time, we started to see them bounce, and they bounced pretty solidly and both closed at very high levels. I think a record high for BHP. To me, that was probably money coming in out of Europe. It feels like the European investors were sort of chasing our miners, maybe ahead of their own market open.
Yeah,
So definitely, and again today we've got some very strong moves, both BHP and Rio. Fortescue down a bit, but the other two big miners are very very hot.
yeah. I think you're also starting to see a bit of sell America, and Australia is a bit of a safe haven, really, for compared to other countries. So I think you're seeing a bit of money flow out of other countries and starting to really flow into Australia and giving the market in general a pretty good, solid kick along.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Even the banks today, we've got some solid moves. Interesting, we've got reporting season starting in about 2 weeks. CBA, the first sort of major one we'll be focusing on. Um, Very big for the economic direction of the country, CBA's results. So one to watch out for as we get closer.
Yeah, and you'd like to think with all the macroeconomic data that's been coming through that our economy is kicking along pretty well. So it's hard to
Yeah.
imagine that CBA won't report pretty solid numbers.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you look at our unemployment, which is remaining very low. And the
Yeah,
big thing for me was the participation rate, which seems to be at almost record highs, which, that's unusual to see it at such strong levels.
yeah,
Um, I suppose it shows the tax revenue for the government will remain very, very strong.
yeah. I mean, it's getting hard to imagine that we won't see an interest rate rise in the next meeting, isn't it?
Yeah, so what next week and after those CPI numbers, I definitely feel where if we don't get one this meeting, and we'll definitely get one the next.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I tend to agree. We want to have a chat about ETFs today.
Yeah, I thought there'd be something interesting. Obviously, ETFs have been a huge growth area in the market, and something that I think many of our clients have looked at, and we have used some of the broader ETFs. But I thought it'd be worth just going through. There's lots of ones we can actually use with options now, and also just give people some ideas about where they could use an ETF, sector wise or for some sort of commodity or global exposure.
Yeah, I thought I'd just put up some stats. So on our market, there's around 400 ETFs,
Yep.
and there's about 1,850 companies listed. So it's actually a pretty big part of the market now, and they're continuing to grow. You see there, the old listed investment companies are starting to fade away a bit, and ETFs are jumping forward. So, and I can't see that trend actually changing too much.
No, definitely, mate. I think that's the growth's there. And look, there's a couple of very good providers. BetaShare is one of the ones that I look at a bit of their stuff. And I did want to mention a couple of ETFs that they've got listing in the next couple of weeks. They've got one now. They've some unusual codes. The code is BEMG, and it's an emerging markets ETF. It's going to hold about 1,000 stocks, so very broad exposure in over 20 emerging markets. So that's an interesting one for someone
Yeah.
wanting to get exposure to emerging markets globally. And the other one I thought was very interesting, they've called XMET. XMET is the code, and it holds global mining stocks that are mining essential minerals for the AI infrastructure growth or AI infrastructure use. So a couple of interesting ones to look at there. Obviously, you've got a list up there on the screen of some the more generic ones, and probably the ones that many of our clients may find more useful to look at in an investment portfolio.
Yeah, so I've just listed up there the ones you can actually trade options over. Given we talk about options most weeks, so there are a few there that you can trade over. I think for me,
Yep.
ETFs have an important place in the market and in investment portfolios. So quite often, if I have a new client come in and they're wanting to start out investing, I think investing in a broad, high yielding ETF like VHY is a
Yep.
great place to start investing. And then quite often you'll, as a client evolves in their journey, they'll want to start investing in specific sectors and might not want to invest in a specific company. So as you mentioned, you just listed off a couple of that give exposure to a basket of shares in a specific industry or a specific theme. And there's plenty of them. There's
Yeah.
like the gold ones, there's oil ones, there's bond ones. There's no shortage of these things if you are more interested in a sector rather than trying to pick individual winners. And
Yeah.
that has its pros and cons as well. I mean, you probably do as a positive iron out some of the volatility in the sector, but you might not necessarily get the same sort of gain. So it's a little bit risk reward type thing to look at, but it's a very safe place to start investing.
Yeah, definitely. And I did notice for those that are sitting on say just cash balances in a CMA, there actually is some ETFs that actually try to outperform the cash rates that the banks are offering. So they're also worth looking at if you are someone who's not looking to enter the market or buy any more stock. You could look at a basically a cash management style ETF that is basically geared to try and outperform the standard cash management accounts that our banks offer. So a couple of ones there that are interesting. There's a one I have traded. The code's LEND, LEND, and that one does basically non-bank lending to developers and a lot of global stuff. Very well sort of diversified, and they've been paying a very solid yield. I think it's up around 9%. So a pretty good one and I think
Yeah,
they pay
right.
that monthly. So lots of flexibility in this space, and basically if there's a sector or something you want to invest in, there's most likely an ETF that'll cover it. So if you just give us a call, and I suppose we can
Yeah.
try and find an ETF that'll suit your desired investment goals.
Yeah, that's it. There's plenty out there to choose from, and across a broad range of themes, there's certainly some things you can think about.
Yeah, definitely. Well, mate, just on the market. So, look, another strong day as we've spoken about. I think the big thing for us is how well companies are going to report over the next sort of month,
Yeah.
and really, I suppose the rate move. If we get a move next Tuesday, how the market takes that, and where things go to from there. I think company earnings, as we spoke about, should remain pretty solid, but maybe expectations, certainly for some of these resource stocks, could be getting a little ahead of themselves.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, some of the numbers that the share prices of some of those companies seem to be pretty elevated. So when they report, they'll want to hit the mark. Otherwise, you could see some selling. And I think
Yeah,
also given in some of those mineral things and oil and gold and copper, the supply demand stuff isn't really adding up for the price of them at the moment. So at some point, that's got to balance out, and
yeah.
that could well happen. Reporting could be the catalyst for it. So we'll just have to watch and see what that ends up.
Yeah, definitely. But one final point I thought's worth noting: when we trade options, one of the things we look at is volatility. Obviously, the more the market's fluctuating, the higher volatility will be, and also if there's geopolitical risks or events going around the globe, that causes volatility in markets. Strangely enough, with all the matters that are going on at the moment, and we've obviously got lots of different factors out there, our volatility index is actually really low, which is surprising me.
Right.
I really feel that the market's almost underpricing volatility at the moment. Now, where
Yeah.
clients can take advantage of that would be if they are concerned that the market might be going to have a pullback, then it's cheaper to buy puts right now than you would normally expect with the risks that are floating around the global economy. So something to look at. If you can buy when volatility is cheap and sell when volatility is high, that's generally a great way to try and trade.
That's a general rule. It's surprising volatility is so low with so much happening in the world. At the moment, I think
Yes,
America's
definitely.
market's volatility spiked a bit overnight, but again, Australia's seen as a bit of a safe haven sort of place. It's you can understand why volatility is a bit lower here.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, something to watch,
Great.
mate. That's probably it for today. Have a great weekend, and we'll
Yep,
talk
you
again next
too.
week.
We'll talk again soon. See you later.
Yep.